But today we're going to go ahead and talk about ownership, apologies, and repair, possibly the most important relationship skill that your child will ever learn, and the most important relationship culture that you will establish in your home and in your life.
Yeah.
So I don't think I can overemphasize it.
No, I'm going to add forgiveness in there because I think I put that on our advertisement, but it's all of that is how we teach kids forgiveness, right? So,
It's all bundled, right? Any of these words works. It's
yeah.
very interesting. I did a lot of work with reading what Dr. Becky has to say about it and taking her workshop. But also Westminster sent me out to Montana a couple years ago, where I spent a week at a peacemaking conference. And maybe that was 4 years ago, and brought that into the school culture because it is so incredibly important.
Mm.
Um, it's essential to healthy human relationships. And I do believe that if you establish it in your home now, it will just be part of life for your child, even if it's hard for you. And probably someone in your household does have a little difficulty with this. And so it takes a little work on the parents' part to get this as part of the family culture.
Right. I mean, modeling is our most powerful tool. And at least for me, and I'm assuming for everybody else, like I mess up as a parent multiple times on a daily basis. And what gets me over the hump of having a struggle with this is remembering like this is my mess up is an opportunity to teach my child what to do when they mess up. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it makes
Absolutely.
it a lot easier to swallow my pride.
They're going to, right. That's true, Peyton. That is true because, I mean, we did a lot of yelling in our house. Yelling happens in every house, and hasty words happen, words that you wish you could take back. And that also is going to happen in um, marriages, in work relationships. So all of this is practice for life. We all know that everybody likes to say, "Oh, so sorry."
Yeah.
But kids love to say, "Sorry,"
Oh,
right?
or like, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It actually, you have to swallow your pride to say you're sorry. So it's not something that comes naturally. It's something that needs to be taught and learned, and you need to grow into it. And it's not too late, and you haven't messed up your child or your family. It's not too late, and you can get started today.
I think also, Becky, I would laugh when we said we were going to do this one because I'm like, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, which is a time when I know even with my own my own siblings and my own parents, forget my kids, right? I'm using this skill
Yes.
a lot during the holidays, for better or worse, right? So I think this is so good because it's not one thing I love about parenting is like when we get good at parenting, we actually become better people. So a lot of these skills really can help us just even in life. So thank
Yes.
you for this. It's timely.
It's awesome. And know that you can repair.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry you got mad. That's great, Meg. You can repair immediately, and you're like, "Oh, that came out wrong. I was wrong to say it that way. Let me change my words." So you can repair instantly, or you can wait. I mean, not you don't have to wait, but you realize you did something 2 months ago
Yeah.
that somehow is still living there, so that you can go back and repair something from months ago.
Right.
Okay, so I quoted Dr. Becky here. Repair is the act of going back to the moment of disconnection. And that language is what she uses because you're disconnected and then you repair. There was a break.
Yeah.
You have to fix that. In the church, we always used loss of fellowship
Yeah.
and restoration of fellowship, right? It's the same concept. something that drove you apart, made a wedge in between you and another person, and you go back, take responsibility, acknowledge the impact. And she says, Dr. Beck says, rewrite the story. I think that's very interesting. She says basically the event, the loss of fellowship, the breakage happened, but you have a chance to tell the story differently. If you don't go back, it's a story of breaking.
Yeah.
But if you do go back, it's a story with a bridge, with a hug. It's a rewritten story.
Yeah. And that's powerful, I think, for both when we as parents are apologizing to our kids, but also to teach our kids when they are apologizing to their siblings or other people or to us. I remember when my littlest, or actually my oldest, was really little. He was probably 2. We use the metaphor of like there's a bridge between our hearts, and the thing that you just did or the thing that I just did knocked out part of that bridge, right? It broke something between us. But when you apologize and you say you're sorry and you say, what can I do to make it up to you? You put those bricks back. And sometimes you build it back stronger. And I think, whether that's me apologizing to my kid for my tone or for yelling or for losing my cool, or my kid apologizing to me for being disrespectful, or my kid apologizing to their sibling for being mean, right? Like all of those things are relationships. I love the idea of repair. They're all relationships that you are rebuilding. And we know that the thing we want most as humans is to belong, right? So like that will actually foster better behavior in our kids because they will feel belonging where they didn't before.
Absolutely. And even if your child seems fine, like you lost it big time when they were misbehaving, and then, an hour later, they seem fine, the memory is still there for them. So don't say, oh, they seem fine. I don't need to go back and talk about that. It's not like you ruined them forever. It's a chance for you to go back and kind of take that memory out of their body. Our job is really to bring it up, even if they don't, and teach them those skills that when you've done wrong, and it's important, you'll see in a minute what I always taught the kids at school is the first 3 words are the strongest. I was wrong. And inevitably, when I had children in my office who were repairing after a fight on the playground or whatever, the tears came with those 3 words. I was wrong. It's hard. It's hard when you're 8 years old or 10 years old to say, I was wrong. It's hard when you're 50. But those are 3 really important words.
Yeah. And Becky, I want to jump in here because I know a lot of parents think, well, if I'm just apologizing to my kid all the time, am I just abdicating my authority? Like, does this mean I can't ever correct my child without apologizing to them? And the answer is absolutely not. Like, I never apologize for correcting my children or holding them to boundaries. The only time I apologize is when I act in a way while doing that I wouldn't ever want my children to act towards anybody else. So if I'm not treating them with dignity, I apologize for that behavior, not for correcting them. And so I think what my children have learned is that apologizing doesn't make you weak. Apologizing means that you are strong enough to know when you've done it wrong and you know you can do it better. And I think that distinction is pretty important because as parents, we should never apologize for holding our children to any standards, right? Like that is our job.
I think that's a really good distinction. Is what we're not saying the parent should be apologizing for being the parent. The parent apologizes when the parent has become dysregulated. It's when you know you lost it You yelled at the top of your voice. Maybe you spanked them. Maybe you screamed and sent them to their room. Whatever it is, we've all done it. I probably did it on a daily basis for about 10 years, when my three were in those middle years, right? I remember my mother losing it. That doesn't mean that she was a bad mother. She was an awesome mother, but there was amazing unconditional love and forgiveness happening in I'm one of five children. When I was a kid, we were fighting all day long and doing bad stuff all day long. We were just kids, but there was a wonderful, wonderful sense of you fix it. You break something, you fix it. So all that repair was happening all the time. Um, it's I think it's we can't protect our children from our parenting mistakes, but we can protect them from the self-blame that might come when they're in their room after you've screamed at them and they're saying, I'm a bad kid. I never get it right. I never do. My mom's never proud of me, or whatever they're going to say. What is that negative self-talk that we don't want them holding?
Mm-mm. No. And also, I think too, like, I want my kids to know that within the responsibilities that they are responsible for their actions. They're not responsible for my mood. And so I think a lot of times it's like, as parents, we get frustrated with our kids' actions, but then we're like, that put me in a bad mood and I'm allowed to like throw my bad mood on you. And like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm responsible for my emotions. My kids aren't. And I think too, that's really important. Like what you're going to say about this tips on repair, right? Like, also grace upon grace. We're not perfect. Like our kids are not perfect. They're going to lose it. And so they need to see that it's okay to make mistakes and oh, but the best way to recover from mistakes is to apologize.
Yes, absolutely. But so definitely never try this when people are still upset. Right? You've got to let some time go by, right? Find a quiet moment later when you're tucking them in, later when you're driving in the car if they're an older child or whatever, but find a time when everybody's even keeled
Mhm.
and that you have privacy and you have some time. Not when you're driving up at the carpool line and you're three cars from the front, right? Find a time when you can have a hug at the end of it. Pray about it. Pray about the timing, and ask God to give you that timing. I learned that 40 years ago to pray for timing because timing is really everything. And then say what happened. Say what happened. And that's another thing with the kids. Um, After I was wrong, I made them say I was wrong for, and then they had to say what they were wrong for. So call it out, express what happened, and then apologize. It's funny because Dr. Becky, she kind of downplays apologies and then she teaches it. So it's like it's a dirty word for her, but she must call it something different because apology is essential.
Mm.
Essential. And then this is really tricky. Don't say but. Don't say what they did. Don't rub it in. Don't even hint at it. It's very tempting, right, Peyton?
Oh, and you know what, Becky? I know this, and here's what I do. I'll say, I'm sorry, I was wrong too, blah, 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 blah. I didn't mean to. And you should still not do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so mad. I just undermined my entire apology. I didn't say
Right.
but I still did the same thing.
Yes. I mean, it's super tempting. Let's look at a couple of those scripts. I
Do you want
got
me to?
mad yesterday when you and your sister were arguing, and I didn't give you a chance to tell your side of the story. I'm sorry, and I'm sure you have important things to say. I'd love to hear. What's interesting about that script is that's maybe revisiting it more than I am used to. Because, and so that you would do only if there was an omission. You see how that you basically silenced your child,
Mm.
and you need to kind of dig in a little bit more. So really pray for the timing on that one so that they're not then reliving it.
I think that's important too, because a lot of times as parents, we end up treating in an art, like when our kids are squabbling, we end up treating one differently than the other. It's like, oh, you oldest, you should know better. And then we start to build accidentally this like victim bully mentality. And, I always tell my kids, like, it takes two to tango. Like, you don't get in a fight by yourself. So, what is the piece of the pie that you can own? And I think each kid really does need a chance to say what was the other person's piece of the pie, but also what was their piece of the pie. And I think when we silence kids because we're like, nope, you were wrong, out, we don't give them a chance to examine that and figure out how could I, yeah, my brother was poking me. And I'm going to say that that was the reason why I smacked him. But it's like, okay, well, let's figure out next time your brother's poking you, what are you going to do instead? Right. And so when they don't have a chance to share that, then you've missed an amazing teaching moment.
You cannot believe how many adults, kind of the young, the late 20s, early 30s, my children's ages, who find out that I do this parenting Zoom. They all say, well, I was the younger child. I never got in trouble.
Yeah.
I was stirring the pot all day long, and my parents always got my older sibling. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a story that comes back every time. We tend to hold the older one responsible, and we don't realize what a nix that younger one was.
Right. Or maybe like in our family, maybe it's not the oldest, or, maybe it's a child who's neurodiverse or has got ADHD or is a big feeling kid who has a lot harder time with self-regulation. And then if there's another child who doesn't, whether they're oldest or youngest, it's the kid who typically gets in trouble is the kid who always gets in trouble. And then there's that like angel devil dynamic that it's like, that's just not healthy either. Right. So I
Yeah.
think this apology thing's really helpful because then it helps you treat each kid the same. Right.
I think that's really important, Peyton, because my oldest got in trouble all the time because she had a big mouth, right? She's the one who always kind of fought back, and it was she was more disrespectful. She was always pushing the envelope, but the other two were also doing stuff, but I always blamed her because she mouthed off.
Yeah.
So going back can be good. Pray about that timing. Um, I do think it's important, the second confession or script, we should call it, the second script, it's important to call out that you recognize that you were dysregulated or you were in a bad mood so that your children don't think that we all have to be perfect all the time. I really think that today's children think they have to be perfect.
Hmm.
It's crazy. And so, I mean, we all have moods, we all have feelings, we all have good and bad moments. And so calling that out for your child makes you human and allows their humanity as well.
And I think also it helps them learn systems where it's weirdly, it's also a like, you're not the center of the world. Like, you came into my system, and like my system at the time was hurricaning. And sometimes you just get bounced out of that. But not everything I do revolves around you. Right. And so, like, a lot of times kids need to learn that. And that's part of like being able to read the room and read other people. It's like sometimes they may have stepped in it because they were thinking that they're the center of the world when really like my bad mood had nothing to do with you, but you were a victim of it. And I was wrong to do that. And you need to know that my bad mood had nothing to do with you.
I love you calling that out because I do think today's parents are trying to make their child the center of the world or feel like they're the most important thing in the entire universe. And yes, we adore our children and they're a gift from God, but we have our own lives. We have our own concerns outside of them.
Yeah.
And that's good for them to know. They're their own person, their own people too. All right, let's move on to the final thing here is the 5 A's. And this is something that came actually from that conference in Montana, but I had taught the 5 A's in Bible values in 5th grade for many years. And then it became part of the culture. And every teacher had a little poster on their blackboard, on their whiteboard. Admit, apologize, accept, ask, and alter. And admit is the hardest one, but it wouldn't hurt to take a picture of this screen so that when you are in that position to teach it to your family, they don't have to come in this order, but admitting has to be first because that's when the healing begins. I did this. I was wrong. And I always insisted on I was wrong to kick you when you took my ball or, whatever it was that the child's apologizing to another person. But it can become, I think the first three actually ask is out of order for me. I like to say, I was wrong to yell at you. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? So I like ask to come third. I put it here directly as Corlette Sandy wrote it, but I was wrong to slam the door and run out of the house. I am so sorry, and I know that hurt your feelings. Will you forgive me? And the only other side of that, and then the other two can come later. I accept the consequences, and I am trying not to be a door slammer. Door slam. We have a lot of doors in our house. Our house is almost 100 years old, and we have lots of doors. So no open floor plan at our house. So there was a lot of door slamming and it was against the rules in our house. And so we had to apologize for slamming doors because what does it show? Slamming a door is dysregulation, right? You were not under control or you were, and it was wrong. So the only other thing that I insisted on with the kids was not saying it's okay.
Yeah.
Peyten, talk about it's okay.
Oh man, Becky, that like kids will always be like, I'm sorry I hit you or whatever. And then the response is, it's okay. And I always tell my kids, you cannot say it's okay. It's not okay what they did. That is not okay. What you mean to say is either I forgive you or thank you for saying sorry. Those are your other only two options. You might not be ready to forgive, and that's fine. You need to acknowledge their apology, but those are your two options. The other thing I'll say, Becky, is my kids love to try to take the I out of an apology. So they might be like, it was wrong to hit you. Sorry. And you're like, no, no, no. I was wrong. You have to say the word I, and you have to look them in the eyes. So the kids will look down, right? Sorry I hit you. Sorry you got hurt. And you're like, no, 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 no. You're not sorry they got hurt. You are sorry that you did this, right? So I think those are key. Absolutely, Becky.
Yeah, it's taking that responsibility. And I think when I started teaching this, probably, 5 to 10 years ago, I started using it on my husband. So that was a really good thing to do, right? That was a game changer for our relationship. For those 3 words, I was wrong to come out first. You can use that in the workplace. You can use that with your aging parents. You can use that really with the grocery store clerk that you were brusque with. You can use I was wrong. And I believe I grew up in a culture of forgiveness. I love, there was a book many years ago, My Home, A Place of Grace. Because ultimately that's what you're doing when you forgive, is you are giving grace, unmerited favor.
Yeah.
So if you want to take that into your Thanksgiving week, I think it'd be great. And just the privilege that Peyten and I have of teaching it will be great reminders for us as well.
Awesome. Well, we're about at time, but I did want to make sure we said happy holidays to everybody, since we're not going to see y'all till January. We'll come back on January 9th. And two quick things for those of you who are here or listening online. There's a technology dinner coming up that is going to be amazing. If you want details, let me know. It's going to be January 8th. You can reach out to me and I can talk to you about it. And another thing is, if you have any grandparents who want to kind of do, like, your kids are with them or they're having a hard time with your kids, I'm doing a short little 3-hour positive discipline for grandparents on January 26th. And I'd love to see any and all of yours there. So